What I want to know is how does one get involved in doing rock work as a woman? Do you really, really want to know? Or do you just want the rehearsed response that I always give? What would happen if we chose to really tell the truth about ourselves? Like if we really, really just told the real truth of our lives. I'm not saying that it's true. I'm saying that it's my truth.
You're listening to Hammered.
The spring of my freshman year, it was getting toward the end of my freshman year, I was inseparable from my Brooke Shields friend. It was a very deep, deep friendship. I was deeply in love with this person, and I couldn't express that because I was too afraid of any kind of rejection. I'm not really sure where she was at with all of this, and it really didn't matter, but we spent a lot of time together, and I look back at it, and it's very sad. It was very sad that I couldn't express myself, and I was just always in this unknowing. I was always in this curious place of what is she thinking? Is she thinking like I'm her sister? Or is she thinking of me just as a friend? But I was petrified to ever tell my true feelings. I mean, we wrote notes to each other, and we spent every waking minute that we could together. And I'd been gone home with her and gone to her house and her parents' house, and we'd traveled a few places and sat together on the way to the basketball games. And so, but I was always in this real confused place about it, and I'd kind of just learned to accept it. And we had started, doing some drugs. And I mean, everybody pretty much was doing some drugs in college. It wasn't that big of a deal, really. But there was this person that lived across the hall from her who was sort of a jock, and she was on the sports teams. And she would always tell me that she was real concerned about me. And I think she really secretly had a crush on me, is what I think. And she was real kind of butch, and she would sort of say these little things like, she would warn me about, you're going to get in trouble, and I've been watching y'all. And, she was like keeping tabs on me and this other person and me and this friend. And she was kind of friends with this volleyball coach who was real gay to me. I mean, I think she was a huge closet case. I think that was the whole case of both of these situations. I think they were both closet cases. But see, here's the tricky part, is that there was religion involved, and they would go to church, and they would go to these Bible studies. And that would always blow my mind, because it was like, no, wait a minute. And then I thought, well, maybe they're in the closet, so they can't really be gay, so they're pissed off because they think we are. And we weren't really being gay, to my knowledge. We were being like close friends. I mean, I was being gay. I was being gay in my mind. I was being gay in my fucking fantasies, wishing that this other person felt the same way about me. And I just didn't have the nerve to just throw it down and say, hey, what the fuck, man? What are you thinking? Why do you want to hang around me so much? Why do you want to sleep in the same bed with me? Why do you tie leather bracelets on my arm? But I couldn't do it. I was too scared. I mean, there was this one drug called MDA, and I guess it would be like the modern day ecstasy or Molly or something like that. And I remember one night, we snorted some of that stuff and we went to the dark room because she was in photography. And I remember us being in the dark room looking at these photos, and everything would just come to life. And I'd never felt that happy in my entire life. I felt like I was in total love and I felt happy. I guess being altered helps that. But it was kind of like, is this how you're supposed to feel? And I knew that the drugs would help me to not be so inhibited. And I think it helped us both as far as the inhibitions, but we never crossed that line. But I think we were intimate friends. I've just never been able to figure it out. It's always been a mystery to me. And it's okay. All of it's okay. I wouldn't change any of it. And this one day, we had gone out and I guess smoked some dope and stuff, and she decided, let's go rescue a dog. And so we went to the pound, and it was right toward the end of school. And if she was going to rescue this dog, she's going to take it home anyway. And her parents lived down at Hilton Head. And so we came in, and we had the little dog in the back. He was kind of like a little Sheltie mix, like a little shepherd Sheltie mix, real cute. And we pull in the parking lot. Well, this girl that lived as a suite mate across from my friend, she came running out. Her name was Abby. She drove a red Firebird with a white top and white interior, and she was an only child. Her daddy bought her that for Valentine's Day. Well, and she was kind of chubby. They called her Happy Abby. Well, she comes running really fast, and her hands were shaking. And she said, keep going, just keep going, just keep going. And we were like, what? And she said, security's in your room. Security's in your room going through your stuff. And so my friend had some black beauties in her dresser, apparently. And the jock on the hall had narked on her, basically, narked on Brooke Shields. And we think she told security that I think there's drugs in that dorm room. Well, we ran into my dorm and found Basement Debbie, and she was this girl that lived down in the basement, and she did a lot of drugs and got us drugs and stuff like that. And she said, look, I'll give you the keys to my mother's cabin in Cashers, if you're a Cashers native. There's a certain way to say it. I don't know if I say it right, but Cashers. And y'all just go out there and just get out of here. So we pack up as fast as we can and take off to Cashers. We find this cabin, and of course we went to the grocery store before to get some alcohol and some food. Now we got to get dog food because we have a dog. And I mean, it was like, what the fuck were we thinking? We go, and I mean, I'm living in a fantasy the whole time anyway, because I don't care. As long as I'm with her, I don't care what's happening, and so we go, and word got out on campus what had kind of happened. So the partier people, the drug people, all came out on Saturday night, and we had this big bonfire, and it was just great. And it was just kind of like this tribe, I guess you could say. We were all in love with each other. I think there was just a certain amount of acceptance of just being in love with each other. And that's the only way I could describe how it felt. I loved these people more than I had ever experienced in my life. I didn't feel judged. I think on some level that they knew that I was gay, and they just didn't give a shit. They just loved me. They didn't care. Well, when Monday came around, I went back to the college, and I went to try to advocate for my friend, and I went to this woman dean, and I think she was a closet case, and I thought that maybe I could sweet talk her, and I went in there and tried to pull some strings. I told her, it was just diet pills. I mean, they were black beauties, and you know what? They were diet pills. And I said, everybody just takes them to study. I mean, and some mothers give them to their daughters to lose weight. I mean, come on. And they pretty much kicked her out. And the day she was going to have to leave was the day that I really thought that my heart was just going to break in half. I did not think that I was going to be able to handle this grief. This grief was as powerful and as horrible as when my grandmother had died. I really didn't think I was going to survive it. And I remember her wiping the tears off my face and looking at me and saying, "It's okay. It's going to be okay." And she said, just, when school's out, just come down to my house. And, her parents were going to be out of town. And so as soon as school got out, boy, I hit the road. I didn't even go to Atlanta. I went straight down to Hilton Head. And there we were and had this great house. And, I guess there's the mind is tricky because I could just pretend that I'm like with her and can pretend that we're like together in this beautiful, cool beach house. And I would go running and I would run on the beach and we would make good food and drink and smoke. And she didn't drink that much, but she would always buy me beer and we would hang out and just have this best time ever. And my dad somehow, I don't know how on this planet, but he got her home phone number. And he called down there and got me on the phone and said, "Get your ass home." And he had a job for me at Eastman Kodak. And so I had to pack up and go home. And I literally felt grief-stricken. It was one of the most horrible summers of my life. And I drank and used and drank and used. And I just didn't think I was going to be able to go back to Brevard College. And I went and I tried out at several colleges because Brooke Shields was going to go to Berry College. And so I decided that I would try to get closer. And I tried out at Shorter College and Truett McConnell College. And I signed a letter of intent with this Truett McConnell College, and they had won nationals, and I did a tryout, and I was there just speeding my ass off, but I made it through the tryout. And so I signed this letter of intent. Well, then I got all into the summer, and I just got more depressed and drank more and more. And I remember this one morning thinking, I just need to go into the service. Maybe if I just go in the fucking Marines, that this will straighten me out. And so I went and I met with the recruiter and I went through the whole process. I got all the way down to the wire. And then I just I got out and I said, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I guess I hadn't taken the civil service test. I'm not sure all the ropes that you go through, but I know that I was right there, and I remember having heart palpitations, being downtown Atlanta with all these hundreds of people that were trying to go in. And I called Brevard College, and they had a new coach, and it was a woman, and I had never had a woman coach in my life. I had only had men coaches. I'd had a woman assistant coach, but never a like the main coach. And she seemed kind of strict, and she wasn't that into me, I could tell. But she told me, come on back, I've heard you're pretty good, and la la la. And so I got back to Brevard College, and it was devastating because I saw Brooke Shields and myself everywhere. Everywhere I looked, I saw her. Everywhere I looked, I saw us. Everywhere I went, it was in my cells, and I just could not get over it. So I just started drinking more and more. And I had a private room. They put me in a single room, and I hooked up with these girls from Vero Beach, and they were hilarious, and they were really my saving grace. But I never had any closure on that friendship or that whatever kind of relationship that was. I just know that my heart just grieved her, and I would call her on the payphone, and she would talk about her new life at this new college and her new friends, and I was super jealous, and I just, it was just killing me. And I just, I started drinking heavier and heavier with all these new friends, and it really, really was a painful time in my life. Well, living with my dad in this second year of the ice cream business was really hard. And my dad lived in these apartments after my parents divorced. And there was this young guy that lived across the parking lot, and his name was Michael. And he was so cute. He looked like a young George Michael, and I think he was gay, and he kind of had those kind of like, not like baby fat, but he hadn't matured all the way yet. You know how some guys in the summer, they grow and change? Well, he was still at that 7th, 8th grade, maybe 9th grade spot. And so he would kind of wave at me, and I'd wave back at him. And all the kids were infatuated with me because of this ice cream truck. And so down below him was this little girl named Tracy and her mother. And her mother was in a wheelchair, and her name was Elaine, and she was kind of like a feminist. And Tracy was about 8 years old, and she had this beautiful long curly hair and a really big vocabulary for an 8-year-old, and smart as a whip. And I really liked her. And then across the breezeway from her was the gay couple, Pam and Diane. So they were like word on the street in the apartments that they were like together. And so Diane was sort of like the daddy, and she would sit like in a recliner chair, and you could see her through the sliding glass door. And what was ironic was that diagonal to their apartment was our apartment, and my dad's recliner sat diagonal to her chair. They'd be sitting in their recliners at the same time, and I always thought it was kind of weird because she was like the daddy over there, and he was like my daddy, so it was kind of a distorted, fucked up, I don't know what it was, but anyway. Well, Michael and I had started becoming friends, and he was a little outgoing, but a little reserved, and I saw his mother, and I couldn't figure out her situation. She drove this big old car, this big brown car that was constantly having trouble. I'd see her out there pouring water in the radiator, and I always felt kind of bad for her. And it seemed like she left for work every day around 3 o'clock. And so I finally asked him, where's your mom work? And he was reluctantly said, well, she works at this bar downtown, and she's a kitchen manager. And I said, where? And he said, it's a bar that my aunt owns, and it's her sister. I said, what's the name of it? He said, Tallulah's. Well, that was kind of like the chic women's bar. And I go, oh my God, I've been there. And so his Aunt Hilda was the owner, and she had actually been a Playboy bunny, and she was really a knockout. She had red hair, and she kind of looked like Jill St. John, just that really seductive and very friendly and outgoing, and her personality really built that business. People came there, she was bartending, and her partner, her love mate's name was Dot, and she was kind of like a big Mac Daddy, and she had a big old heart surgery scar on her chest that kind of ran down her cleavage, and she was kind of scary. She controlled things and made sure that things didn't get out of control in there, and they were doing coke all the time because Michael would tell me all the big secrets. And there was this other girl in the apartments named Tina. And I had seen Michael hang out with her, and she was very interesting. She had her own apartment, and she was about maybe 28 years old, and she was in a wheelchair. And so finally I said, why is she in a wheelchair? And Michael told me that when she was little, like around 5 years old, that her brother was playing with matches, and he threw a match and it caught her hair on fire, and it burned her neck and her shoulders. And she had some burn scars that were visual on her neck and her arms and stuff. And then the same brother a few years later was playing with a gun, and he shot her, and it paralyzed her from the waist down. And so that's why she was in the wheelchair. And then to top it off, she got cancer in one of her legs, and she had to have her leg amputated. But what was crazy about this situation was that she had the most positive, sweet outlook on life. And I remember thinking, God, like I would be miserable. Or I was just thinking, how does she stay positive? And Michael kept telling me, well, the Mormons are going to help her with this, and the Mormons. I'm like, what are you talking about, the Mormons? And the Mormons had actually come to visit her one day at her apartment, and she was living in government housing. I guess she had some financial help from the government. But these Mormons had come in, and she just liked anybody to visit her, and she kind of looked like Bonnie Raitt, she had a smile and this red hair, and she drove a blue Dodge Dart, and it had hand controls. Well, the Mormons actually bought her that car so that she could come to church, and she totally, became a Mormon. How do you become a Mormon? I don't know, but she did. And they bought her groceries. They had a person that would come take her every week to the grocery store. And so we would all hang out at her place because she had food and a stereo. And it was kind of the teenagers and me and her. And we just started hanging out there. It was starting to become like this kind of dysfunctional family in the apartment complex. And there were some good times in there. It wasn't just all horrible drunkenness, but of course I was drinking every night, and I was having to hang around more because I was on thin ice with my daddy. So I was trying to be good and stay around and, just sort of be around there. And, Tina didn't really have a filter. She would just say whatever. And so when I told her I was gay, I remember her going, "Oh, gross, ew," and she just didn't like the gay thing. But this one afternoon, I can't even remember how this all happened, but I talked her into going to the gay bar with me one evening, because really I just wanted her to drive me down there in her hand-controlled car. And at first she was just like, hell no, no way on earth, I'm not doing that. And I said, come on, it'll be fun. If we don't like it, we can leave, I promise. Well, we got down there, and she didn't drink, and I convinced her to drink some peach schnapps, and she had a couple of those, and next thing I know, she's out on the dance floor in her wheelchair, and girls are spinning her around, and she's screaming, "Peachy, Peachy," and she was like loving it. And then, she was sort of like, okay, we got to go, and I'm like, no, don't go yet. And so the bouncer lady that let us in would always kind of give me the evil eye, and her name was Brenda. And I was starting to get sort of a bad reputation as being probably a drunk. But Tina was, she wasn't going to stay. And she says, "I'm going to leave your ass." And I was like, "Just stay for the drag show." Well, she left me there, of course. And I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll figure out a way to get home. And so I remember being up in the pool table area, and there were these two girls, and they had on these matching hats and these matching jackets and these matching ties, almost like gangsters, and all that was missing was like the freaking violin case. They had their own pool stick cases. And so I was sitting there and I was watching them play pool, and the drunker I would get, the more sarcastic and cynical I would become. And so I said to them, "What are y'all, like the Hat Sisters?" The one girl looked up at me like, she just gave me an eat shit look. And I was like, who do y'all think y'all are? Like Al Capone? Well, anyway, I hear the DJ or the announcer say, ladies of the 80s, get ready. Please help me welcome the sex kitten of Atlanta, Suzanne. And I had seen this drag girl come in, and, she wasn't being dragged to be male. She was just a female, sort of an exotic dancer. And it was hilarious because when they would come in, she was wearing like a fur coat and had this whole entourage, like bringing her in, like her bodyguard type people. And I remember her crawling out onto the stage, and everybody was all intrigued with her. Well, I was still up in this pool area getting drunker and drunker. And so the next thing I know, I said one more thing to the two Al Capone sisters, and one of them swung her pool cue at me, and I caught it with my hand, and the other one threw her glass of draft beer, and I ducked down. It hit the wall. Well, the next thing I know, the dang spotlight gets turned all the way around up to the pool area, and here comes the bouncer, Brenda, with a broom and a dustpan and a trash can, and just humiliates me. And she says, sweep this mess up and then get the fuck out of here. And so I had to sweep the mess up and clean it up, and then they took me and escorted me out and threw me out in the front parking lot. Well, after they shut the door and there I am, I look over to the right, and there was this girl, and she was crying hysterically in her hands. And I walked up, and she was really upset. And here's the thing, I mean, I was a compassionate person. I was always for the underdog. I felt sorry for people. I had a big heart. I felt sorry for myself and my own life. I felt like a victim, and I didn't know how to get out of that. I really didn't. But when I saw this girl over there crying, I walk over, and she had long black hair. And I remember she looked up at me, and I went to put my hand. She looked like Cher. And I put my hand down on her shoulder, and I said, are you okay? Well, the next thing I know, I feel someone put their hand on my shoulder and swing me around. And this girl with this kind of real short cropped hair, real angry looking, I feel something in my stomach, and she cut me with a knife. Well, I had on Michael's white members only jacket with the red and blue stripes on the sleeves and the collar. And all I know to do, it was just a sheer reaction as I just punched her in the face. And when I did, she fell backwards and stumbled backwards. And I grabbed Cher and said, run. Well, we took off running up Cheshire Bridge Road, over the bridge, all the way up the hill. And there was a place called the Dunkin' Dine. Well, the slang for that place was Drunken Dyke. And so we made it up there, and I said, let's go in here. And I remember going in, and I said, do you have any money? And it was probably 3:30 in the morning by now. And I remember looking down and seeing that blood come through that white jacket, and people are all looking at us. And I mean, but it's 3:30 in the morning. Most of the people are fucked up anyway, and there's just night crawlers are out, so they've probably seen it all. So we get a booth and we sit down, and when your buzz starts to wear off and you start getting kind of hungry and kind of so we get coffee and order food, and we're sitting there and we start talking, and we had this long talk, and come to find out that was her girlfriend that had cut me. And they had had a big fight, and the girlfriend was real jealous and possessive of her, and I guess was thinking I was like hitting on her or something, and I wasn't. And they were from Birmingham, Alabama, and they'd come over to go to this big gay bar because they had heard about it because it was this huge bar. And we sat and we sat and we talked and we talked. And then, the sun starts coming up and I'm just getting like tireder and tireder and tireder. I said, do you have any money like to take a cab? And so we took a cab back to the apartments. And I thought, okay, let's just go to Tina's apartment. And so we go to Tina's apartment and I knock on the door and I hear her rolling, going, who is it? Who is it? And I go, it's me. And she starts to unlock the 42 locks that she's got on the door and opens the door and looks out at us and says, who's that? Because she was real direct, and she goes, you look like Cher. And I said, can we come in? And she goes, what do you want? And I said, can we just come in and lay down? Because I really felt like I was about to pass out. And she said, I guess. And so we come in and I laid down on the couch and Cher sat across in a chair. And we were talking. And the last thing I remember seeing her sit, across from me. And when I woke up, she was gone. And she left me a note. She'd written me this long note. And it went on to talk about how I had been like her guardian angel and that I saved her. And I'm thinking, where did you go? Like, how are you even going to get back to Birmingham? And like, how do you even know what street we're on? There wasn't any like Google Maps or any kind of internet. I had no idea like how she got out of there and where she went because there wasn't cell phones or anything like that. But I read this note and it touched me because I was there for her the best way that I knew how to be. And I knew there was still a part of me that was still compassionate. There was still a part of me that hadn't completely gotten jaded. But I was very sad because I felt like my life was just sort of turning into this lost soul kind of place. And then I had to go sell ice cream.
Hammered is recorded and produced in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. It's narrated by Jill Haynie, produced by Maggie Briggs and Jill Haynie, and with sound design, editing, and music by Alexander Rodriguez. Our beautiful artwork was created by Lauren Caddick, and we'd like to send a special thanks out there to Minnie and Robin. You can check out our website, podcasthammered.com, and follow us on social media for updates.